just admitted back into international competition. If you remember very well that the Harambee Stars had been suspended for some time. So that's part of what we'll be talking about today. Plus the fact that the Under-17 World Cup is going on. You know, Brazil is the reigning champions, And they almost used Caledonia like a shooting range. They just pumped goals and goals and goals and goals. 9 goals. I was doing the average. If you do 9 in 90 minutes, I mean, that's a goal every 10 minutes. Now, that's quite some work that the Brazilians did over there. And then there is the shortlist for the female World Athlete of the Year. And Faith Kipyegon is still on that list. We'll be talking about that as well. Plus the fact that the World Rugby has now decided to send some of the texts that was sent to the referees, to the authorities, to punish the fans for the abuse and for the death threats that were leveled against the referees. So that, together with a lot more, is what will make up Scoreboard for tonight. I am Bernard Otieno. We've got ways that we always want you to use to be able to interact with us as well. So it's just usually a simple question. And this time round is to do with soccer. Harambee Stars have lost in Gabon. What's your prediction for Harambee Stars versus Seychelles? Harambee Stars have lost in Gabon this evening. What's your prediction for Harambee Stars versus Seychelles? This one will be played in Cote d'Ivoire. What's your prediction? At Bernard_sports, at KChege_sports is your Twitter handles are at. Let's get into it right now. And let me introduce you to the cool kid who's here again, but he's all alone today. How are you doing?
Very well, Bernard. How are you?
I think Bunge is stuck somewhere in the Rift Valley and he couldn't make it on time. So we're going to run this with Ken today. So what worked for you, Ken?
Yeah, Bernard, on Sunday evening, I watched a very nice football match. Mamelodi Sundowns finally lifting the African Football League, the inaugural Football League, and walking away with some $4 million. And I think for Africa south of the Sahara, I mean, that's a great thing, considering this trophy has always been won by up north.
So
I think
that
worked for me. Okay. What didn't work for me, Bernard, is the chaos that we saw at Kasarani. Granted, Gor have now been fined just about 2 million shillings when they played against Seals. The fans could not control themselves, but hooliganism, I always say, has no place, irrespective of,
But this happened after the game, Was it after?
Even.
No. I'm just confirming. Yes. It happened after the game. You see, problem is sometimes when it happens after the game, people blame the security. But in this case, who was at home? It's God
was at home.
So they're the ones in charge of security.
They're the ones who had hired the stadium, you see. And now they've been fined and they've been told until they pay that fine, they're not entering another stadium of sports stadia. But for how long are we going to have this, really?
All right. Yeah, so that didn't work for you. Okay, well done. For what didn't work for let me start with what worked for me. What worked for me is I was looking at the rankings of the best teams in Africa, the rankings, and surprise, Bandari FC is among them.
Yes, it's in the top 10.
At number 10. Yes.
Amazing.
Mamelodi is the first one. Younger is there as well. Al Ahly is there. Wydad, Petro, that's from Angola. Esperance of Tunisia. Berkane, Maniema, and then there's Bandari. Now that worked for me. What didn't work for me is the fact that FC Leopards and Simba SC are on the list of underperforming clubs. On that list, okay? Same as Kaizer Chiefs, Nkana Red Devils, and Asante Kotoko of Ghana, and River Plate. Not River Plate, Rivers United of Nigeria. Now, that didn't work for me. The other thing that didn't work for me is that Helen Obiri couldn't get the total prize money for, tying on points on the Abbott Majors marathons. Now, they tied with Sifan Hassan. And then it took now the 6 directors to be able to vote on who's going to win the extra money. And they voted for Sifan Hassan. Although they are tied. Yeah, well, I think they should have just split the money.
They should just split the money. It's a split anyways. Is equal.
So that is what didn't work for me. But let's get deep into what we want to talk about today. We'll start off with Harambee Stars. Now, Harambee Stars are in Gabon. They traveled on a private jet to be able to play in the World Cup qualifiers. Now, they've just been readmitted back into the qualifiers after having been suspended. We've just received the result of that match. It's 2-1 in favor of Gabon. That is what happened. We had stories about what was going on with the team. It was all, happy-go-lucky. The minister was at the airport with a chartered flight for them for Gabon. But what's your take on it?
I honestly expected a bit more than this, Bernard. because other than the jet that was there to take the team, and none other than the person of the minister himself, we also, that is the game now ongoing. We also had all the allowances have been paid about the first time that this has happened, you know, and the team they were playing against, when you compare the build-up to this, you know, we looked to be in a better space. But then we went out there, we scored first through Masoud Juma in the 40th minute. I think this must be the equalizer. That's the equalizer for Gabon. Yeah.
Right, so Kenya scored first, and then after that, Gabon recovered and scored 2 goals in the second half. This is what won it for Gabon. That's the first goal that was scored by Masoud Juma. They rested on that for a little bit of a while, and then after that probably lost concentration, and it looked a little bit easy for Gabon to be able to sink those 2 past Harambee Stars. So that one is down. They have another match. They are going to be playing Seychelles. Now, Seychelles had a little bit of a problem themselves. In fact, their players had boycotted training because of non-payment of allowances. You know, these stories that you always hear in this part of the world.
Africa is...
Oh, it never used to happen in Seychelles. This is the first time we are used to Cameroon, we used to Ghana, having all these problems before major events. But now, spreading into East Africa, because Seychelles is in East Africa.
If you think that's a big story, what about Eritrea?
What happened in Eritrea?
Eritrea, the team has been withdrawn.
Why?
Because the government thinks that the players are going to go out there and seek asylum and not come back.
That government is just correct. They'll do exactly that. They always disappear. They've done it in Sekafa even here.
So they
disappear. Last time we talked about the Somali team having disappeared in Kenya, there was nothing about the Somali team having disappeared in Kenya. They were assembled in Kenya.
They were in Isli all the time.
They should have just looked for them in Isli. And that's it, they would have found everyone. But yes, the Eritrean team, most of them, and it's not only in soccer, it's in literally everything, even in athletics and other sport, they go and disappear and seek asylum and they move on. So they'll be playing Seychelles, and the question we're asking is, what is your prediction for Kenya versus Seychelles? That match is going to be played on Monday. We move on then. So you know that the leagues have taken a break because it's the international window. But of course, there were matches that were played over the weekend that make up what is the Premier League table for the Kenyan Premier League. And in the matches that were played, the one that Ken was referring to is the one that caused the havoc at Kasarani. It was Gor Mahia versus Moranga Seals. Moranga Seals have been on a very good run.